Well, hello. I'm Barry Sullivan, Director of Program Development for the Marconi Society, and I am here to welcome you to From the Show Me State of Missouri, Connecting Missouri, Show Me Digital Equity. Before we introduce the panelists, I'd like to go through just a few of the logistics for today's webinar. Um, well, first of all, you will notice across the bottom of your screen a number of options to click on. One of them is the Q&A option. That's how we'll be accepting questions that you may have. So feel free to submit a question, and there will be a Q&A session at the end of the panelist discussion that we'll be able to address those questions as well. And with that said, I think we're ready to bring on the panel. So let me first introduce our moderator, Dawn Turnauer. Dawn is the marketing manager for the Missouri Research and Education Network. And Dawn, I'll turn it over to you to introduce the rest of our panel.
Thank you so much, Barry. We are really excited to be a part of this discussion today, and we're excited that Marconi Society reached out and noticed what was happening in Missouri. I'm going to start with a little bit about the organization I work for to give you a little bit of an insight of where we stand in Missouri. So the Missouri Research and Education Network, better known as MORENET, actually is the research and education network in Missouri. There are about 48 other research and education networks in the state, and we all have a unique niche, but all of us are dedicated to the critical infrastructure that powers our nation's most important work, and that is our community anchor institutions of higher education and research centers, K-12, libraries, community nonprofits. And actually, we could go to the next slide on your screen, Tori. And so MORENET has 720 members. All of them are community anchor institutions, like I mentioned. And we have 589 connections, and that's internet connections to our fiber. Actually, internet connectivity was our very first service that we offered, and it was nearly 35 years ago. And that was way before the internet became a very common thing in each of our households. It is still offered today, but of course, we've added a lot to that. We've added, hosting and registration and connectivity through wireless and other options. Of course, you can't have connectivity without having cybersecurity opportunities. And we do have a cybersecurity team that helps all of our community anchor institutions have very layered security. And they have a multi-layered approach. We do everything from under the hood to end user education. And then pulling into, we always say we started with the internet, and then it's like, how do we use this valuable technology? So we've got some network solutions that, it's backup and archiving and firewalls, and then tools and resources that go as deep as data interoperability and online resources and hardware and software. And then our professional development, we actually have a training team of 5 people that they train teachers and technicians and all sorts of staff and faculty about all the different technologies out there and then how to implement them in your classroom. But we also have several events throughout the year. We've got some conferences and some technical training summits. So really our focus is, how can we use technology to make our lives easier and better? And so when we say that, how can we use technology to make our lives easier and better? Well, we have to then address digital equity. So when we take at the core of who we are, and that is about synergy and collaboration and using technology to make our lives better, that's how we actually ended up working with each of the people on our panel today. And we have got an amazing panel of folks that I've had the pleasure to work with on various projects to increase digital equity in Missouri. So I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Dimitri Farthing, who works for our Office of Broadband, to tell you a little bit about himself and his organization.
Thank you so much for that for the introduction, Dawn. Good morning, everyone. It truly is a pleasure to be with you here today. As mentioned, my name is Dimitri Farthing, and I work at the Missouri Department of Economic Development, specifically within the Office of Broadband Development. My title, I am the Digital and Economic Opportunity specialist. And effectively, what that means is that I oversee the state's efforts with regards to digital equity and digital inclusion. And so, just as Dawn did for Mornet, I'd like to give you all a brief rundown of the history of the office. So, the Office of Broadband Development was established as an office within DED in 2018. And for a long, long time, to tell you the truth, it really was an office of one. Anyone who's familiar with broadband in Missouri surely knows about Tim Arbeiter, who was the longtime director of the Office of Broadband, and he was truly a do-it-all director, right? He manned this office. He set up so many programs. He ran so many programs. He oversaw, hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in broadband over the years. And so, to talk about the work that our office does without mentioning the groundwork that he laid for us is truly doing him a disservice. But with regards to where we are today in 2021, the Missouri legislature really recognized, just like the federal government did, that broadband is a necessity to be productive, to be effective in the modern world, in the modern economy. And so, in response to that, in 2021, the legislature passed legislation expanding and increasing the capacity of OBD. And so, in 2022, we saw the addition of our new director, BJ Tanksley, but also a real concerted effort to expand the work of our office. And so, from that original office of one in 2018, we've expanded to just about 15 people. We have dedicated teams in GIS, dedicated planning teams, dedicated grant teams, and truth be told, we're still growing. So, if anyone who's invested and concerned about expanding broadband, expanding digital equity opportunities in Missouri, please send them our way. At the moment, we're currently overseeing, over 200, or excuse me, over $2 billion in grant funds. And really, this is just, in support of expanding opportunities, recognizing the gaps, and doing our very best to fill those gaps. And so then, before I hand it over to my colleague, I think if there's one thing I want people to take away from our office, knowledge about our office, it's our mission, it's our goal, right? And so, next slide, please. This is the vision as articulated in our digital equity plan and our digital opportunity plan. And while I won't necessarily read this whole thing to you, I like to show this to every group, every crowd I talk to, because I think it's important to emphasize that, yes, we are the Office of Broadband Development. We want every single Missourian to have access to high-speed internet, not just because they want it, because they deserve it. And because, as I said earlier, it's no longer a luxury, right? It's a necessity to be active, to be engaged online. But again, it's not just a matter of getting more people online. That's certainly an admirable goal in and of itself. But our focus, right, being an office within the Department of Economic Development, we want every single Missourian to be able to get online, not just so that they can watch YouTube, not just so that they can Skype with their friends. Again, we recognize the value of those of having that ability, but we want every Missourian to be able to get online and be active and engaged online in such a way that they can enhance their own economic opportunities. We want people to get online and be able to acquire a better job, be able to get online and attend their telehealth appointment, be able to get online and assist their family to accomplish the things necessary to, again, better their own economic circumstances. And so I think hopefully today, hearing the work that we're doing, the work that we expect to do over the next coming years, you can see our intense desire to accomplish that goal. And I promise you we'll do everything we can to do so. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dimitri. Our next panelist that's going to introduce himself is Noah Washburn with the University of Missouri Systems Office of Engagement.
Wow, thank you, Dawn. Glad to be here today. Of course, as Dawn says, I'm with the University of Missouri Systems Office of Engagement, and I'm a statewide specialist working with extension and engagement. Our office is pretty unique. We have our administrator that's kind of over our cooperative extension service, as well as the systems office of engagement. And what we actually do as an Office of Engagement is community outreach. And we do that through all four universities, through the engagement leaders that are involved at all those four universities, and those bases also keep us very well tied with the issues across the state and things that we should be working on. About 2017, our office started noticing a big push in internet adoption and better internet across the state. So we formed a state steering committee, which include all four universities, here in Columbia, Kansas City, our science and technology branch in Rolla, as well as our branch in St. Louis. We also partner very well, since our leadership is over Extension, with the Extension service. It's over all 114 counties across the state. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we've done this a little later. I'll give it back to Dawn to move on.
Okay, excellent. Well, our fourth panelist is Robin Westfall, and Robin is our state librarian. She works through the Missouri Secretary of State's office, but the Missouri State Library. Robin.
Yes, well, thank you, Dawn. And I'm sorry that I don't have a slide. But what I can tell you about the Missouri State Library is we provide guidance and support for 160 public library districts within the state. We work very closely with MORNET. In fact, the legislature allocates funds for what's called the REAL program, which supports libraries. And with those funds, we work with MORNET to enhance the connectivity at our public libraries, as well as Dawn was talking about, provide that cybersecurity. There's a component of that we provide to the libraries as well. In addition, our libraries are very involved, not just in digital equity, but they're involved in the digital literacy component as well. So working with MORNET, we provide North Star digital literacy platform to our libraries. And in addition to the funding that comes through MORNET in support of the libraries, we also administer funds from the federal government through the Institute of Museum and Library Services, where we strive to provide grants to our libraries in support of their additional technology and digital equity needs. So we administer not only the funds that come through MORNET, but also some federal funds that are also allocated to our public libraries.
Excellent. Robin, we're going to dig a lot deeper into some of those partnerships and programs through the next about 45 minutes. But I'm going to go back and touch on something that Noah had mentioned in his introduction. And he talked about the state steering committee. And one thing that makes Missouri so unique in some of our digital equity initiatives is truly our partnerships and the synergies that we've found with different organizations throughout the state. So Noah, if you would take by nature of default, because you've been around longer than any of the rest of us on the broadband initiative, can you talk a little bit about how the state steering committee came about and maybe some of the success stories from it?
Sure, be glad to. Thank you for this opportunity again. Like I said in the introduction, we started this interest around 2017. We had some new administration here at on campus. It was involved with all 4 universities, and we did some kind of grassroots effort going around doing some listening sessions across the state. And of course, the internet situation came to the top really fast. So that moved us to start forming this committee of like-minded individuals that were interested in this. And Kansas City had a really deep involvement in this and pulling this together, not only just UMKC, the university there, but also some of the nonprofits and things that were involved. So we've got a really cool, and I don't know how best to say it, a very involved steering committee of people that just like to work together. And obviously it's Office of Broadband Development's involved, MORNET, of course, with Dawn, and the libraries. But what's really cool about this is that we did some major accomplishments in the past few years, helping the Office of Broadband develop some of the information that they needed for their federal grant application, of course, for BEAD and DEA. We also developed early on a website called mobroadband.org, and I hope that that'll get shared to you, and then you can kind of see along beside what we've got going on. But that's a public resource that anyone in the state or anywhere can actually get on and check out all the resources and things that we had. We've also got some other things that came about from this. Was Connected Community Guide, a digitally connected community guide was developed, and that was really handy. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that just gave the resources at the local level or county level or city level for individuals to kind of come together and start facilitating discussions around what was needed in their community. And then lastly, I'll talk about later is our Digital Ambassador Program, which is a volunteer-led program on just community education. All right, Dawn, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. I will mention that I see that Tori put the mobroadband.org website in the chat. So thank you, Tori. And before my next question is going to go to Dimitri to dig a little deeper on community engagement and collaboration between various organizations. But as we're talking about collaboration, this is a good time to remind you that if you see the QA button at the bottom of the screen, feel free to click on that and submit a question. We will do our very best to get to it during part of this discussion. But anything that we don't get to, we're going to try to save time at the end for a QA. So now I'm going to pitch it back to Dimitri to talk a little bit more about community engagement, collaboration, the different synergies that have happened in Missouri from your angle.
Yep, happy to do so. Thank you, Dawn. I think, truth be told, it is hard to oversell the importance of community engagement to the work that we do. I'll talk about everything I say now is 100% about myself. I think all of my colleagues are complete experts and would never demean them at all. But when I came to this role, I was fresh out of grad school, and so I had lots of ideas about policies and implementing policies and developing policies. But I was certainly by no means a digital equity expert. And so again, I think that really underscored the importance of partnerships, right? I was thrown into this position and I was told, hey, this is new for the state of Missouri, but we've got to set this program up. There are needs. The digital divide is real and it impacts Missourians across the state. You've been hired. We trust you. Develop the programming. And so in order for me to be successful, I had to rely on our partners, right? mobroadband.org has been a critical resource, right? People come to our office expecting information, expecting resources, looking for support, and more often than not, I directly point them to mobroadband.org, really underscoring the importance of that, right? If someone says to me, hey, our family really wants to get online, but we just can't afford the internet bill, it's really crippling at this point. I can say, well, have you checked out mobroadband.org? There may be some affordability support for you on there. Or someone else may say, hey, we have there's a real need for devices in our community and we don't know how to get them. And so I point them to mobroadband.com, to mobroadband.org. They can go there and figure out again, right? This is a living, breathing website that folks can go see, and it is updated regularly, listing the resources on an interactive map so people can see what's available to them. And so I think really understanding, us coming in as wet behind the ears, as unfamiliar with this field as we were, it was critical to that, right? And then I think going forward, we had to, starting this work, interacting, engaging with Digital Equity Act, we were expected to develop a plan to ensure that the entire state, was able to get access to the resources they need. And so we went out and we conducted a 41 site tour over 2 years. We went out and we spoke with Missourians. But again, at the time we were an office of 4 people. We could not have done that on our own. And so one of my fellow panelists, Noah Washburn, came and was at 41 sites with me, helping us to conduct these meetings, helping us talk to Missourians, figure out what's needed, right? They also had a number of other folks from Extension come out. They helped us take notes. They helped us promote these meetings, gather folks, right? So it's not limited to actual implementation of programming, but it extends out to gathering support in the community, helping to engage in promotional activities. But it's also not limited to the university, right? So we also have Robin on the panel with me, but we've worked extensively with the state and local libraries, and I can't ignore our moderator today. We've directly worked with MoreNet to really administer some of these grant programs and ensure that the digitally inclusive activities, digitally inclusive programming is available throughout Missouri. And we've seen that, and we've seen remarkable success in that effort. And I can say truly that none of that would be possible without our state partners, without the guidance and the work set by both our forebearers, but also the broadband steering committee that Noah was talking about, right? This got set up before I was here, but all the groundwork that they laid for us has really enabled us to be successful. And so we can't over exaggerate the value of community engagement. And I think, the results that we've been able to deliver really speak for themselves.
Agreed. Thank you. So I know I definitely want to address some of the programs that have happened at libraries, but before I move to Robin, I'm going to go ahead and build on what Dimitri just said, that he did mention that they were across the state gathering information, understanding the specific needs of communities, And the University of Missouri System of Engagement really took the lead in a lot of different innovative ways on that state outreach. So Noah, I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to you and ask for you to share a few more details, a little bit more insight on how your team engaged local communities to better understand the specific needs of digital equity in the state.
Yeah, and honestly, Dimitri did a really good job of that. He kind of covered it really well. Obviously, we partnered with them to kind of do these listening sessions, and our MU Extension Service staff across the state kind of helped us with that. They helped bring the audience in and listened, and we captured all of that information and kind of put that together as kind of the starting point 2 years ago, wasn't Dimitri? I think when we started this, and then came back and did another one last year. And so it was a really good opportunity for us to learn. I was new with Dimitri too, actually. It's funny, we both kind of did that and thrown right into the middle of the ocean. It wasn't just a little pond, we were head first. But it was a lot of fun. Got to spend a lot of time with the Office of Broadband Development. We have a really good group here, great people to work with. The other component that I touched on earlier was that, once we started building that relationship, then we needed to start finding ways to help and find other information across the state that would help the Office of Broadband get the amount of money that we deserve, that we feel like we need here in the state. And we did a household survey, which was pretty popular a year and a half ago, or well, early last year. And that went out to over 8,000 people that actually responded to that, which sounds low, but we only have a population of a little over 6 million people. So that's actually, when you're doing research, that's pretty darn good. We also did focus groups. One of our campuses has a department that focuses on that type of qualitative analysis type stuff. And they did 15 to 18 different focus groups all across the state, targeting those audiences that the federal government is expecting us to kind of touch on when we're doing this type of work. And then other things as well. We did a lot of just information from different standpoints, gathering things that was needed by the Office of Broadband Development. Thank you.
Awesome. I would echo that anybody that's done consumer research would probably be impressed with those numbers, Noah. Yeah. That was some tremendous outreach. So Dimitri also had mentioned that, all of us have worked together in several different capacities. I think most people who have worked with public funding and nonprofits, we know that often we take a rough draft and then we just keep building and changing and improving the ways we can. So there was one program, it actually started with University of Missouri Extension, and they had a grant and needed some content creation on digital literacy and digital equity. So our MoreNet training team actually developed 13 modules if it was somebody that didn't know anything about technology, 13 modules to make them feel more comfortable. And we structured it as a train the trainer program. So the idea was then so we could go into libraries and train them as facilitators, and then they can be resources in their community. That's how we took it. We took it and turned it into our Getting Started with Technology program. And Tori just shared that link in the chat. And then Noah's team took it and turned it into their Digital Ambassador program. They're different programs with some of the same core values. But that said, collaborating on that facilitator training program for libraries, Robin, it did incorporate everybody on this panel. But Robin, if you could talk a little bit more about the role of public libraries in community outreach and what's worked well for you in both digital equity and digital literacy.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dawn. Libraries still are that trusted community organization that people come to when they are looking to learn something. And so it just made sense that this would have been a trained facilitator at our public libraries. We do have, most of our libraries in Missouri are rural, and they may be staffed with only somewhere between 1.5 to less than 10 people in the entire library. And so a lot of the library staff themselves needed some training on how that they could better help the community and the folks who are coming in and asking these sorts of questions. And so that sort of training being held at the libraries just absolutely made sense. And how we have continued to build on that is at the State Library with the funding that we get is we have special funding that is just for improving technology in libraries. In particular, most libraries now are offering some sort of either a hotspot or hotspot Chromebook combination. But of course, when you offer this, it's not just about handing over the equipment to someone and not giving them any instruction on exactly how to use it, or once they get connected, the measures that they may need to take to make sure that they're safe when they're on the internet. And so in addition to just that normal basic level of connectivity and the things that we can help the libraries can help the community with, we're really good about adding that value added education part to that, because it's not just about having that hotspot and that Chromebook and there you go. There's still, even in 2024, we do find folks who are intimidated by or afraid of what it means to get online. And that's where our libraries come in. We have all but Noah was talking about there are extension agents in all 114 counties. There are libraries in 112 of those counties. We have 2 counties in the state that don't have libraries. And while you would think that folks coming into the library would have diminished over time, or how people use the library it would be diminished, but that is not the case. It has become so much more than just what you traditionally think of libraries. In fact, some libraries, they find that the traffic is more about getting online or getting the hotspots or getting that connectivity than it is about some of the traditional things that libraries play. And I think that is just going to continue. And libraries just have to make sure that we are staying pace with whatever is happening digital equity and digital inclusion wise.
Robin, that actually was a great transition into another topic. And that is, as we talk about digital equity, digital literacy, when you're talking about putting equipment in people's hands, that's not a free undertaking. And so we can't talk about digital equity if we don't talk about funding. So if you just go ahead and build on a bit, how has the Missouri State Library leveraged resources and funding to support the digital equity initiatives?
And so, as I mentioned before, the funding that the legislature has allocated for how we support MORENET or how we work together, and honestly, over the past few years, that has increased. And then again, we also get the federal funding through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. For us, and as difficult as COVID was, and I almost feel guilty sometimes when I say the advantages to COVID, or this is what COVID did for us, is we had an influx of ARPA funds and CARES funds that allowed us to, and we immediately turned those funds around to our libraries with the charge that they had to purchase or use those funds in some way to help meet the needs of their patrons who weren't necessarily coming into the building. And so those funds were used in some cases to purchase and install community Wi-Fi stations in parks or in other areas around where you could actually be outside and get that connectivity. Libraries have expanded their Wi-Fi to at least include as far out as the parking lot. Truly, it used to be we didn't even think about that necessarily of being we need that Wi-Fi to go outside of the building, and so there's that expansion. So the majority of the funds that our libraries are getting, and of course in Missouri, most libraries are 90% of their funding, or 90 probably about 96% of their funding is going to come from local revenue. But where we can supplement is again with the funding that's provided to us from the legislature and that federal funding as well. And we really focus on with that federal funding that there has to be this purpose. Yes, we still do summer library program, of course, we still do that. But the focus has changed so much to be toward technology and digital equity as much as as possibly can. We possibly can.
Excellent. I have been a recipient of Wi-Fi in a library parking lot. I live in rural Missouri, and sometimes our rural connectivity isn't all it's cracked up to be. And so I have taken a meeting or two from our local library's parking lot. So I appreciate that. So you did mention various ways of funding. And so oftentimes when we talk about digital equity funding, we talk about a couple of different federal buckets of money. And that is the Digital Equity Act, which we all call DEA, and the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, which is called BEAD. So I'm going to actually ask Dimitri to give us a little more insight or details as to how those two funding buckets have been used in Missouri.
Thank you, Dawn. Let me give a brief overview of those two programs for people, just in case they aren't familiar. I know I may be preaching to the choir here, so I apologize if any of this is repetitive, but as Dawn mentioned, there are two programs there, right? So what we typically refer to as DEA, the Digital Equity Act, and its complementary program, the Broadband Equity Access, or BEAD program. And so the BEAD program is primarily intended, right? That's our infrastructure program that's focused on getting the hardware necessary to establish internet connections in the ground and connected to households. And when we talk about that, everyone in the state of Missouri should be extremely happy with the BEAD program, right? So of all the state's allocations, all 50 states and 6 territories have all received allocations from the BEAD program. And Missouri has the 3rd largest allocation in the country, right? We are behind only Texas and California, which everyone knows are the big hitters in the country. And so I think, one, we really should take pride in the fact that, the federal government recognizes the importance of the state and the true utility of establishing internet for all. But I also think, in that good news, there's also the recognition that the reason we have that much funding, despite our share of the population, is because it's going to cost a lot to establish those connections. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of funding. It's going to take partnerships to make sure that we are connecting every household, right? Making sure that internet for all is a reality, and that is the goal of this program. Right, so hit you with the good news, hit you with a little bit of the bad there. But I have full confidence in our office's ability to accomplish the task for us, and I think we'll be able to do that. And then referring to that second program, the Digital Equity Act, it is great. It represents great things for the state. I think in the first fiscal year of this program alone, from the planning grant, we received $800,000. From the first iteration of the capacity grant alone, we were expected to receive $14 million, and there will be 2 more iterations of that program coming. And then the Digital Equity Act competitive grant, which our office won't apply for, but we encourage all Missouri-based organizations to apply for. We think with our organizations, with our expertise, with our demonstrated history of success, we think Missouri-based organizations are in a good place to really receive those funds as well. And so that's really laying the groundwork, right? Those are the funds available to us and Missouri organizations, and that's how we've interacted with them. And now, and so if we refer to the second part of your question, talking about how we've used those so far, well, let's talk about the Digital Equity Act specifically, right? We're still in the planning phase for our BEAD program, but we expect to roll that out. And I think the goals there are much simpler, right? Get every single household that's not connected, internet. The Digital Equity Act, it's a little bit harder, right? We want to bridge the digital divide, but that's so many things. It's not just getting people internet, it's getting people internet, making sure they're capable of being active online. It's getting people internet and making sure that when they go to pay their monthly bill, it's not breaking the bank for them, right? It's making sure that, not only do you have internet, but you have a device that fully lets you engage with the internet. Those are our goals. And so speaking of what we've done with regards to that, with some of that planning fund, like I said, we got about $800,000 from the federal government. We took about $250,000 from that, and we used it to launch what we called our digital demonstration grants. And so we provided 10 organizations across the state. These were We wanted to make sure that the groups we selected were both geographically and demographically representative of Missouri's population as a whole. So we made sure that the 10 organizations we selected were distributed across all of Missouri's economic development regions. And those programs focused on three things: increasing the digital skills retinue, increasing the digital skills capacity of Missourians everywhere, helping to promote affordability. And we did that by promoting the ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program, and the Lifeline Program. And then we also wanted to talk about devices. We wanted to get devices into the hands of the people who didn't have them. And to be honest, we saw, some pretty remarkable results from that. We saw, scores more people online, scores more people informed about the resources to work to their benefit, and dozens of more folks, able to get access to devices, whether that be, securing an actual personal device or going out and knowing about the offerings at their local library, and taking advantage of those things. And so that's how we've used the funds till now, right? But that's only a small portion of what we're expected to receive. As I said, this year alone, we're expected to get about $14 million, and we can't keep that money. That money has to be spent, and so we will be getting it out the door. I think when we talk about funding, one thing we stress is that our office, we are not a service delivery organization, right? We do not perform any service. We don't lay a single inch of fiber, and I don't conduct any digital skills trainings, although I like to think I could, right? Our entire mission is to pass those funds down to the organizations, to the individuals who do know their communities, right? We recognize Missourians know Missouri best, and so we want to get the funds into the hands of those individuals and make sure that they are delivering the services that they know their community needs.
Excellent. So as we talk about funding, I've mentioned the Missouri Research and Education Network and some of our programs. We have our Getting Started with Technology program was funded through a variety of, our office is funded through membership dollars. So community anchor institutions pay membership dollars for our service packages that include professional development and some technology consulting. And so we used a mix of those membership dollars, and we were one of the recipients. I'm pointing to Dimitri on my screen. We were one of the recipients of one of the broadband office's digital equity or digital demonstration grants. And so we use those dollars. We use membership dollars to create content. And then we used grant dollars to help actually our travel expenses to get out into the community to make sure, primarily libraries, but we also went to a lot of nonprofit organizations that are members that serve those who are developmentally disabled or ones with just rural and connectivity issues. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and point to NOAA again and say, so NOAA, as part of the University of Missouri system, can you talk a little bit about how some of your initiatives were funded?
Yeah, thank you. I'd probably be fired tomorrow if I didn't go ahead and brag on the university system administration and all 4 universities being heavily involved in using their internal investment in faculty and staff to help get to the point where we're at, obviously, and also allowing, of course, for grant funding opportunities and doing some of that shared buyout times with employees and different things like that. And to mention some of the grants, of course, AT&T Foundation was one of our first pretty big funders to help us develop our digital ambassador program. Don, you've talked about that, how you all were made, kind of came up with the skeleton of the whole program and kind of used it, and then we took it to the next step. And then the Office of Broadband Development that Dimitri just talked about with those pilots, we were fortunate to get 2 of those as well and be part of that. And that actually helped us pilot that the Digital Ambassador Program in a couple of the rural areas in the state, and did a really good job. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So if you're interested in digital equity and you're interested in how digital equity is funded, then we also know anybody that's ever been a recipient of a grant has to talk about impact and measuring results. Nobody gets a grant without being able to say, here's our success stories. So I'm going to go ahead and shift this conversation into what are some of the most impactful projects we've worked on. And I'm going to just go ahead and keep this focus on NOAA. And if you would talk a little bit about some of the impact that you guys have had with your programs.
Well, thank you, Don. Of course, I'm going to spin off just a little bit because some of our early work, of course, the mobroadband.org, I can't brag on enough, but some of the major impacts that we saw early with our digitally connected community guide, if I can spit that out, And I kind of talked about that a little earlier, but that's a facilitated program. It brings a lot of university resources, just economic analysis, community analysis, and different things that these local communities need to be able to talk about themselves and come together and figure out what infrastructure is needed and what they already have. So that guide worked in 7 counties in northwest Nottoway County about a year and a half ago, and that led to them getting $50 million of funding at that time frame, which was pretty cool. And a spinoff of that same timeline there was our UMKC at Kansas City wanted to do a student pitch competition. And we had 12 UM system university students from law, business, and engineering that formed teams. And they went out and started looking at different broadband planning in that Nottoway County and that regional area up there. And of course, they came to and sold their programs to us and kind of gave us a little idea of something totally out of the box, which was kind of a really cool opportunity. All right, that was 2.
That's excellent. Okay. Well, Dimitri, I'm going to go ahead and shift back to you. If you could talk a little bit about how many grants were funded and some of the impact you saw from that grant. You teased us a little bit with it. If you could give us some more meat and potatoes there.
Happy to do so. I am always a fan of bragging about all of our Missouri-based organizations. So just like the last one, I'll give you 2 breakdowns, right? So I'll give you one a little bit for BEAD, because I think our director will have a fit with me if I don't talk about our actual broadband infrastructure initiatives as well. And so with BEAD, via our ARPA NTIA BIP program, I can't give you the actual number of projects, but I can say we are currently administering $265 million in broadband infrastructure expansion. And so we're very happy with that. We also have our cell towers program, and that gave out $20 million, excuse me, to build new cell towers to expand cell coverage across the state. So we're both really happy of those, right? So those are our big accomplishments on our infrastructure side, but I know Marconi Society, everyone really just cares about our digital equity developments. So I'm also happy to talk about those. And so that program I mentioned earlier, right, our digital demonstration projects program, that is probably, not even probably, that is without a doubt the biggest digital equity effort we've accomplished to date. We've handled to date. And so again, just a reminder, right, we worked with 10 organizations across the state, 20 to give them or to distribute $250,000. That's $25,000 each. And so I have right here, if you see me looking off, I've got my stats here, so I apologize for that. But just to give you a few of the numbers, and while every single one of our partner organizations did amazing work, I'm going to highlight just a few. And so when we talk about DEA, we were talking about DEA funding, and we're talking, and really it's on a whole different scale, right? We're talking about potentially up to $20 million from the Digital Equity Act, while we're talking about billions of dollars with the BEAD program. And so we really have to make every investment count. And so one of the ways we do that is via partnerships, via collaborations. And we encourage that in the programs we fund. And so one of those collaborations was between the city of Kansas City and a Kansas City-based nonprofit called Essential Families. They worked together, and over 3 months, they administered a ACP promotional campaign as well as Digital Navigator program. And so that program alone registered over, just lost it, nearly 200 households for the ACP, right? So that's $30 a month that 200 households in the Kansas City region are now receiving. Also, every household that engaged in the program received a personal computer that they could take home and was theirs to keep after the program. They also engaged with the program's digital navigators, making sure that they had the skills. And those digital navigators continue to check in with those individuals every month to make sure that they continued receiving their ACP benefits, so that they were still studying and had the skills that they needed, and that their internet subscription, wasn't having a negative impact on their financial health. And then one more program that I'd like to emphasize is the Ozarks Area Community Action Corporation. And the reason I talk about them is because they had the highest number of ACP interactions, right? And so they they went out and they attended sports games. They went to their local youth centers. They went out to grocery stores and gave handouts. They helped recruit at the parks and things like that. And as a result of that, at the end of this program, over just 3 months, they had 654 households signed up for the ACP, right? And this is in rural Missouri, right? An area that's deeply impacted by the cost of internet and the availability of internet. And so really seeing the benefits that this organization did for these groups is incredible, right? 654 households getting $30 a month for the foreseeable future from at that time. That was represented an incredible benefit for the state of Missouri. We were really happy to see it. I think MoreNet accomplished great things. They were able to institute a number of trainings over 3 months, really got this program up and running from the ground up. That was really impressive. The university actually conducted 2 programs for us, but one of them that we like to talk about was their Train the Trainer program up in Nottoway County. Again, one of our more rural counties, and they did excellent work making sure that they had digital navigators, that they had individuals who had the knowledge to be online, but not just had that knowledge themselves, but were willing to go out into their communities and make sure that their friends and neighbors also had those abilities. And so I think, we're really, really proud of all of those efforts.
Excellent. And now, Robin, I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm coming to you next. But when we do talk about the grant that MoreNet got through the Office of Broadband for Digital Equity Training, over that 3 months, I can give you some quantitative results, and I'm going to throw it to Robin for the quantitative or for the qualitative. But the quantitative results are that in 3 months, we offered 12 facilitator trainings and trained 61 facilitators. And then on our website, it's digitalequity.missouri.org. You could find a facilitator near you. So if you had questions, you could go and find a facilitator. In that 3-month time, after we trained 61 facilitators, 195 community members came in for assistance on understanding how to use technology. We track our online resource usage for EBSCO and Rosen and Heritage Quest that is available through libraries. And we saw an increase there. And the biggest increase was Heritage Quest, which is people trying to find their ancestry, at 51% during that time period. And then we also watched, of course, the digitalequity.missouri.org traffic. And then we tracked open rates on emails. But one of the pre and post event surveys is what really makes my heart happy. And that was, so before training, we asked every participant if about their confidence and their knowledge in technology and using technology for their everyday chores. Before training, 50% said they were somewhat confident using technology. 0% said they were very confident. After training, 67% said they were somewhat confident and 20% said very confident. Before training, again, 50% said they were somewhat knowledgeable and 0% said they were very knowledgeable. After training, 47% said they were somewhat knowledgeable and 40% said they were very knowledgeable. So we feel really good about getting that information and using the libraries in the state to get that information out to their communities. So with that said, Robin, I know that you've got some stories and some anecdotes and some results. If you would share those, we'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. And it's so great to hear that, because really what we want is we want our library staff across the state to feel comfortable and confident when they're providing that sort of information to their patrons. I mean, it has changed. The job of a library director or that frontline staff has changed so much, and that ability to feel confident knowing that they're going to be able to pass on some extremely valuable information to their patrons is so exciting. But really what we're seeing libraries do is they're doing projects like they've never done before. While the bookmobile is back, in particular, as we look at St. Louis County and the Kansas City area, these are now techmobiles. Yes, they're going to have some reading material on these mobile libraries as well. But really, it's about providing that connectivity and those devices while they go sit in a park somewhere, or they're outside of a community center, or really just in a neighborhood. So folks can just come right up to those techmobiles and get that connectivity as well as assistance in doing the things that they need to do, whether it's file their taxes, apply for benefits, talk with their loved ones. As you can imagine, the use of these is endless on how they can use those. We also had the Mid-Continent Public Library, which is based in the Kansas City area. they wrote a grant to us, and it was all about setting up telehealth centers within their libraries. And so in addition to providing the connectivity, the webcam, they're providing the blood pressure cups, the stethoscopes, and other things. So when the doctor's asking, what is your blood pressure, they're able to do that. They worked on, in some of these libraries, they worked on making sure that it was HIPAA compliant so that there was soundproofing as well. And honestly, this is not just an isolated event. We see that these sorts of programs and activities that libraries are doing are just going to increase. The Rolling Hills Public Library, which is up in the St. Joseph area, started offering as a program that we provide called Excel Online High School. And it is an adult high school program where folks who are typically 25 and over can get their high school diploma, not a GED or HiSET, but their actual high school diploma online. And the Rolling Hills Public Library, not only were they able to provide this service, but they provided the hotspot and the Chromebooks for all of those who were able to participate in it. So if they couldn't make it into the library, they're able to do those activities at home. And that when that started, it was sort of an isolated library that was doing it. And now the majority of the libraries that are offering the Excel Adult High School program are providing that as well. I've attended several of those graduations of that particular program that we offer, and it gets to you because you're seeing that the only way that some of these folks were ever going to get that high school diploma was through the library and having that digital equity component and those devices. And then I would be remiss in not saying again just how our library staff is feeling more confident about what it is that they're offering their patrons. And MoreNet provides that not only with the facilitator training that we've offered, but they also do assessments of the equipment that is in libraries. They come out and they check with the firewalls, they check the connectivity, and they let the library know you probably should purchase an additional hub, and they help them with that because we've talked a lot about in rural Missouri, not only the absence of the connectivity, but the absence of technical support, the absence of businesses that offer tech training or support to libraries. And so that partnership with MoreNet has just been critical to help these libraries, in particular in our ruralist areas, to better serve their patrons.
Thanks, Robin. I didn't even ask her to say that. All right. This hour went so fast. I think we've done a good job of addressing any question that came in the QA box. But if you have one that we didn't address, now's your time to add it. I know that we need to wrap up. So what I'm just going to leave it with is give each panelist an opportunity to give a 60-second, either something that we think is really important that our audience may want to know about digital equity in Missouri, or what's in the future? What are we looking for? What is our next big thing? So you can answer either one of those in your last 60 seconds, so then we can wrap up on time. And I'm going to start with Dimitri on this one.
All right, 60 seconds. I'm going to try to squeeze both in because I'm, breaking all the rules today. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dawn. Thank you all for coming. Looking forward, I think the office is hard at work, right? We're in a bit of a lull at the moment. Like I said, we submitted our application about 3 weeks ago, and we're currently awaiting feedback from NTIA on that. Once we do, we're going to work with them, and it typically takes about a month to get our application into final order. Hopefully, we'll get our funding soon, and then due to some internal processes, we have to develop guidelines and program documents. We hope to start accepting applications from nonprofits and other Missouri community serving institutions in the fall, with hopes that this next grant program activities can be up and running in January.
That was an impressive 60 seconds.
Thank you.
All right. Noah, I will go ahead and move to you next about recap and future.
All right. Well, future for us, of course, and we've probably beat this dead horse pretty good, is the Missouri Digital Ambassador Program. That's going to be our baby, so to speak, going forward. And we plan to launch that as just as Dimitri was talking about with some of those federal dollars and what his office is going to be able to help do as well to get this statewide approach. That's our goal, is get this in every county and have volunteer-led education whenever that fiber starts reaching to all those houses. Because you know how it is when people want to start asking questions. They're going to ask their neighbor. They're going to ask somebody at church. Or they're going to ask the civic group. And we want people in place that can help them that they trust. And that's what that program's all about. Thank you, Dawn.
Welcome. All right, Robin, it's all you.
And I feel like Noah, like he knew exactly what I was going to want to say, because we want those people, we want those experts to be the library staff. So it's not just about having the equipment and having the broadband, the director library, or expanded to the parking lot or the tech mobiles that I talked about. It's making sure that the staff continues to be trained and able to better serve their community. The library, I think, will always be that institution that has those trusted professionals that are there to help on everything from James Patterson recommendation to how is it that I get connected, and how do I make sure that I'm safe and I'm not going to be scammed or giving out information that I shouldn't be giving. It is what a 21st century library has to be, whether or not you are in an urban, suburban, and in particular, if you're in a rural community where there's very little other sources that are going to be able to provide this sort of expertise. And that's why it's so important. And I'm so glad that the State Library was included in this discussion, because I think that we're going to continue to be able to offer that component.
Thank you, Robin. And I can keep mine super short. And that is, MORENET, the Missouri Research and Education Network, we're going to continue to be the trusted partner for these community anchor institutions. We're going to explore solutions and technologies to help improve the quality of life for all Missourians. That means we're going to be researching emerging technologies. We're going to try to be innovative, but we're going to continue to partner with these great folks in this panel and other people in the state of Missouri. So with that, I will turn it back over to Barry Sullivan with the Marconi Society.
Okay, well, thank you, Dawn. Thank you, all the panelists, for showing us what is going on in connecting Missouri and creating digital equity within your state. As we wrap up here, first of all, we have been, again, recording this, and we will be posting that recording on the Marconi Society website. But before we go, I just wanted to share a couple of things that are going on with the Marconi Society. One thing, we're very pleased and excited to announce the Digital Inclusion Training Program. This is a collection of video content that we developed along with the Arizona State University Center on Technology, Data, and Society. And as it said on the slide here, we have 5 online modules addressing various aspects of digital inclusion. And this is now available for training. If you'd like to find out more, there's a QR code there, right there on the slide, or go to the training.marconisociety.org page on our website. And again, final announcement, there's also an opportunity to become a Marconi Society member. What does that mean? Well, it means there are opportunities for networking with people with similar interests. There are advantages in hearing about and attending Marconi Society events. We do have regular magazine features that are available to our members, and also a monthly newsletter. Again, for more information, you can go to the Marconi website or send an email to info@marconisociety.org just to receive more information on that. And with that, again, I'd like to thank one more time Dawn and Noah and Robin and Dimitri, our panelists, for doing a wonderful job in informing us of what is going on to connect Missouri. And I thank our audience for sharing with us and attending this today. Thank you.